Fold welcome, and today is going to be another Talking Heads video because those should be easy to make, but they're not actually. But today I wanted to go over some cards that I think underperformed, where I thought they would be good, but in playing them they weren't that great. Then I want to go over some cards that I played with that I thought I didn't expect to be as good as they are. And then I want to go over 10 more cards that I'm looking at brewing with. So I didn't quite hit all the cards that I brewed with last time. I still have a few more to go. And some of that is, getting the cards as you open up packs. But yeah, we'll be brewing with the ones that I had in the last video. And we'll start looking at stuff today. So the first card is a Valley Might Caller. 1 mana, 1/1 trample. And whenever another frog, rabbit, raccoon, squirrel you control enters, you can put a +1. So I thought this was going to be great, and seeing it, in the first initial decks, everyone's making rabbit decks or frog decks or squirrel decks or raccoon decks, and this is just getting a +1/+1 counter every time you cast a creature, right? And and with the frogs, you're recasting frogs, right? So you're casting a frog, casting another frog, it's getting +1 every single turn. So the reason why I put this card as a underperforming is it's only good for that deck, right? Like it's only good for those decks. It doesn't, like when the next set comes out and there's not any frogs, rabbits, raccoons, or squirrels, this card gets less, right? It's not as good. And I thought most of the Valley cards are really good cards, but yeah, I decided to put this one as underperformer. And then the next one up is Kitza. 1 mana, 1 blue, 1/3. I was like, oh, copy spells is great, and it always seems to be, copy. Permanence seems to be great, those type of things. But the 2 mana is the drawback, and then also the 3 power is the drawback, right? So it's hard to get it buffed up with up to 3. You either have to 1 cast 2 spells, or you have to somehow get a counter on this or an equipment or something in order to get it so that you just cast 1 spell. But then you're casting 1 spell, and you still need 2 mana to activate it. So you're jumping through so many hoops, or you just have a bunch of 1 mana casting cost spells, or you're getting some type of discount. So unless you're playing Izzet with the Otter that gives you a discount, or maybe the Case that gives you a discount, I just think it, for all the hype and the ability, it does have high upside, but in order to get there, it takes a lot of setup, and I think that's why I put that as an underperformer. For me, the Dewdrop Cure, 2 mana, 1 white, gift a card. You can return 2 creatures of 2 mana value or less, and if you gifted, you can return 3 creatures. I was like, oh, this will be great. The players will kill all my creatures, and then I'll be able to get back all 3 creatures from my graveyard, and then I'll have a massive, like they'll board wipe me. Well, board wipes aren't happening, or they'll maybe make me discard or whatever. But the problem with this one is you just don't have enough creatures in your graveyard. So you're either playing a creature-heavy deck, and you're playing a creature-heavy deck with power 2 or less creatures, or you have to do some type of mill deck or something. It's just, and then you can't play 4 copies of this because for playing 4 copies of this, you just don't have nothing. So maybe you need to play a sacrifice deck. I think it's just too limiting, and the value isn't there, right? Because 2 mana creatures, they're kind of weak, unless you're doing maybe some bears or something. Maybe figure it out, but that's a deck specific, and so it just didn't pan out as good. We recently did the birds deck, the Lockdown Birds. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I think it's the Lockdown Birds. I think so. The Bloom Creed Mentor, 1 mana, 1 blue, 1 white, 1 white, 1 blue, 2/3 flyer. And when it enters, or when another creature with flying enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control without flying. While it's great, and it's pretty great, it is a deck-specific, very specific deck, right? And, they got the little Angry Birds in the background, all lined up on the branch. But yeah, it's just kind of really deck-specific. Also, you need flyers and non-flyers, right? Or at least 1 non-flyer and a bunch of flyers, right? So maybe you could do a food, a fish token or something, or Mirex, and just specialize in flying creatures. But usually it's just a 2/3 body for 3 that has flying, and it's really not that great. Salvation Swan, 3 mana, 1 white, 3/3 flash flying. When it or another bird enters, you can exile 1 creature without flying, return it to the battlefield with flying. So while it is great, you run out of targets really quickly is the problem. So it can only save, you could cast it at flash speed, so you can save a creature without flying one time. So like you could save Biza from being destroyed one time, and then it flashes back in with, and then it has flying. So then, you don't have, it doesn't do anything else. And so if you don't have any creatures without flying, it can't save them. And, it's just a 3/3 body for 4 mana, right? So that's just kind of why I put it as underperforming. Castrol, the Wind Crested, 3 mana, 1 white, 1 blue, 4/5, flying. When one or more birds deal combat damage to player, you can either put a bird from your hand or your graveyard into the battlefield, or you can put a +1/+1 counter, or you draw a card. The reason why I put this here is just basically it's just bird only, right? Bird deck only. That's the only reason. I mean, it does get it if you attack, but what are you going to do? You're going to draw a card only if you're not playing birds. So if you're not playing birds, you can't put a bird from your graveyard battlefield, and you could +1/+1 on itself. So then I guess it could continuously grow itself, but that's the only benefit you're getting if you're not playing birds. So that's why I put that underperforming. For the common good, 2 X's and a green. And I thought this card, was going to be great. But I tried it out in Love Rabbit's deck and stuff, and you need too many tokens to have some value. And I don't know, maybe I haven't built the right deck around it yet, but, just being able to save your tokens. Usually you want to save everything, right? And I think there's a white card that does that, where it gives everything indestructible for food, right? The Dawn's Truce, right? So you could just play the Dawn's Truce instead. It's 2 mana instead of 1, so it's a little bit more expensive, but it gives it to everything. So all of your offspring, right? The creature part gets saved. And so I guess this only needs to be in a token deck. So yeah, just put it on there. And then Hugs, the Grisly Guardian, X and 2 green, 2 red, or 2 red and 2 green for 5/5 Trampler. Seemed pretty good, 4 mana for a 5/5 Trampler, but 6 mana to get you 2 cards that are useless, and you either play them or you don't, is pretty pricey. Considering 7 mana, you can have a 6/6 or you gain life, and when it dies, make a token, you gain life. And that's just you start to get up to a point where the price you're getting for a 5/5 body is too high, right? Because what if you do it for a 1? So you do it for 5 mana for a 5/5, and you get 1 card that's maybe just a land. It's nothing. So that's kind of why I put Hugs in the downside. And then moving on to some cards that are overperforming. Cash Grab has been working out really great. It was in the mill, Jace Mill. Oh, sorry. Ooh, it is in the Jace Mill deck. Ooh, coming up, spoilers, because hopefully I'm putting this out on Sunday. But just really great if you're playing permanents. You don't even need the squirrel part. Just milling 4 cards. Any mill 4 cards, put a permanent back into your hand. You don't have to put a land. You could put a land. You use this on turn 2 to find a land. Use it on turn 2 to find your Jace. And, use it on turn 2 to find your Hunter's Innkeeper's Talent. Innkeeper's Talent, everyone's using it for, everywhere. It's super good. I'll put a +1/+1 counter every single turn on a creature, and you give them ward for 1 extra mana. Spectacular. Every turn you give them a +1/+1 counter. Fantastic. Now that's not even to mention level 3, where you double the counters and you're doing the Planeswalker shenanigans where they're ultimating on the turn you cast them, right? Peerless Recycling, just a great card to go with Cash Grab. You return 2 permanents from your graveyard to your hand. Sure, you give them a card, but who cares? I'm getting 2 spicy cards, and if I don't want to give them a gift, if I don't want to give them a card, I'll just get 1 spicy card. If the card I'm getting back isn't that great, ideally you're hitting 2 bombs of a card and you're giving them a land or something, random card. Heaped Harvest is another great card. All of these are in the Jace deck. Yeah. But either way, Heaped Harvest, 2 mana, 1 green. When it comes into the battlefield, you search for a basic land, put it into battlefield tap. When you sacrifice this, you gain 3 life, and then also, when it gets sacrificed, you search your library for a basic land. So that means if you have the Enigma Jewel for some reason, we'll just use that as an example. Doesn't have anything to do with the upcoming video. Out on already. When you cast this on turn 3, You get a land, so that's 4 lands. You sack it on turn 3 using the Enigma Jewel. Now you have 5 lands in play on turn 3. On turn 4, you'll have 6. So just super big ramp. This is way better than, Invasion of Zendikar, right? Search for a library for 2 basic lands, put it into the battlefield. This is better. I get 2 lands in play for, 5 mana. I guess there's 1 more extra mana, but I also gain 3 life. So great in those aggro games, great in, where you're not really looking to do anything on turn 4, massively. You're still building up, and you get that life gain for the little, aggro people. Dream Dew Entrancer. 2 mana, 1 green, 1 blue, 3/4. Reach, taps creature, puts 3 stun counters on it, and if you control that creature, you draw 2 cards. Just the versatility of this card, being able to target your own things, being able to target your opponent's things, being able to flicker it out, exile it, return it to the battlefield, or put it back in your hand and recast it, just makes this card great. Sure, you have to add in a few extra cards to get the multiple values, or maybe Elish Norn out, do it twice. Just being able to tap down a creature for 3 turns is amazing. Amazingly crazy. Dowerport Mage, 1 mana, 1 blue, 1/3. When one or more other creatures you control leave the battlefield without dying, draw a card. So if you exile them or return them to your hand, or those are the 2 options. I don't know, sacrificing it dies. But either way, exile, return it to your hand. And it has the ability to return a creature to your hand. So this is the blue Skrelv, right? Sure, you put it back into your hand, you're not giving it hexproof, but for 2 mana and not 1 mana, and you can't use Phyrexian mana to use life, so you need the mana up. But you basically protect your creatures from removal spells and protect it itself, which forces the opponent to have to kill this first. And if they don't know about the combo, then they'll have to use their second removal on the Dowerport Mage, right? Eddie Mercrab, 5 mana, 2/2, 2 blue, 5/5. Everyone knows about this card after watching my Eddie Crab video. Flash. This costs 1 less for each instant sorcery in your graveyard, like the Terror. And so you cast it for 2 mana, tap 2 of your opponent's creatures before their attack step. Then you have a 5/5 body on the board, you attack in. Then you bring this back to your hand and you repeat, and the opponent just dies. Just perform. It's way better than the Terror, and having some ability to blink it or flash it, back into your hand and cast it for 2, perfectly great. 5/5 body just destroys people, and you get it so early. Whew. And it has flash. Well, I guess if you cast it, it comes in tapped. So if you had some way to untap it. Oh no, does it come in tapped? Enters tapped if it's not your turn, right? Yeah. The Strike Force, 2 mana, 1 white, 1/3, flying, double strike, vigilance. Probably had it in 2 videos. Obviously the bird video. 3, 1 mana per keyword on the card, right? Shoot. There was a guy, one person commented on this card, and they were like, the flavor text is great, and I didn't realize at the time. So thanks for pointing that out. I'll have to comment on that. But yeah, the flavor text is great because it has none. But you get 1 mana per keyword, and you get 3 toughness, 1 toughness per keyword per mana. Just great, but great card. You just pump it up, and Monstrous Rage is +3, 4, so that's 8 damage on turn 3. On turn 4, 8 damage. Yeah. Biza, the Bounding Spring, 2 mana, 2 white, 4/5. If it enters, create a treasure if they have more lands than you. Gain 4 life if they have more life. Create 2 fish if they have more fish than you. Creatures. And draw a card if they have more cards than you. Just with the amount of flickering of Biza, with that, the sweeper card that you gift them a card and it brings back 1 creature that's on the battlefield back into the battlefield. Just very outperforming what it's been doing. And the last card I have I guess I have 2 more cards, but the last card, non-land card, is the Blooming Blast. 2 mana, or 1 and 1 red, and you can gift a treasure, and if it does 2 damage to any target, and if the gift was promised, you do 3 damage to that creature's controller. So it's basically a lightning bolt and a shock to a creature in 1 for 2 mana. 5 damage for 2 mana, right? So, outperformed. I mean, you're wiping out one of their blockers, you're giving them 3 damage, and then you're attacking in, and yeah, just blowing them up. Fabled Passage, probably you should, though I'm gonna, I don't really suggest crafting cards, but I think I got like 2 in the packs or something. I crafted 2 of them. I made sure to have 4 of them in a multicolored deck, maybe even just a single colored deck. So once you get past 3 lands, this brings in land untapped. So it basically replaces all the slow lands, and you just go and search for any land you want. So a 4 of in every single deck, it thins your deck, it gives you the land you want. Sure, if you have it in the beginning of the game, maybe it hurts you a little bit, but after the 3rd land, it no longer hurts you, it just benefits you, shrinks your deck down. Definitely craft up 4 of those if you have the ability to, and just put them in every single deck. The Fountain Port is the last card we'll talk about as far as the Overperforming. I think it's been great. It's not quite Mirrex ready, but it does give you more variety than Mirrex. So, you get that fish token. You can make a treasure token if you have 4 and ramp yourself. And you could eat the fish token to draw a card, or you could eat the treasure to draw a card. So if you want to avoid, that pain life, you can make a treasure and then eat the treasure. So you're not, paying life to draw cards. It's a little bit pricey, 6 mana to draw a card. But if you have some of those cave lands in there that produce 2 mana for land activations, the tortoise, decreases land activation, right? So just a few of those things, right, can really help out. But yeah, Overperforming. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about today is 10 cards that I'm looking at brewing around. Hopefully the video is not too long after going through that thing, working on brews. But Blacksmith's Talent, 1 mana, 1 red. When it enters, you create a sword. It's a 1/1 +1/+1 and 2 to equip. On level 2 for 3 mana, you can equip a equipment for free to 1 target creature at the beginning of combat. And then for 3 mana and 1 red, so 4 mana additional during your turn, equipped creatures you control have double strike and haste. So really looking forward to building around this one and trying to find a way to get that to level 3 as quickly as possible, hopefully. Stocking the pantry. I recorded a video before this one that might be going out tomorrow. I don't know. Ridiculous card. That's all I have to say. 1 green, enchantment. When you put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, put a supply counter on stocking the pantry. For 2 mana, you remove 1 supply counter and you draw a card. So every time you put a +1/+1 counter, it's basically like a card draw that you have stored up for in the future. Bananas. So, I'm already made the video. I'm not building around this card, but probably I will make other videos building around this card. Gossip's Talent, 1 mana, 1 blue. When a creature you control enters, surveil 1. So nice for like Graveyard Synergy deck or Descend deck. 2, so 1 blue, 1 colorless. For leveling up to 2, whenever you attack, target attacking creature with power 3 or less can't be blocked this turn. So, I don't know, Toxic maybe? Good for that? Prowess might be good for that. So for 4 mana, you can get your Prowess creature unblockable, and then pump him all. It's crazy. And then for 3 mana and 1 blue to level 3, when a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may exile it, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So you can attack with the Dream Dew and Trancer, because it's power 3 or less. Can't be blocked, does damage. Blink it back out, comes back in, tap down opponent's creature, puts the 3 stun counters on it. But definitely look around, building around that one. 2 mana, 1, the Thistle Down Players. 2 mana, 1 white, 3/3. Just a 3/3 body for 3 on white, not too bad. And then when it attacks, you can untap a non-land permanent. So I was like looking for, I was trying to find like 10 cards for this list, and I saw this card and I was like, So I'm not really sure how to use this yet, but when it attacks, you can untap a non-land permanent. So we have to figure out what non-land permanent we want to untap, but I think it has a possibility to be pretty good. It's also common. The Tangle Tumbler. 3 mana, 6/6, Vigilance Vehicle, and you could pay 3, tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. So just that in general, not bad. You cast it, you have the mana to be able to do that. Also, it has Vigilance, so you can attack in with a 6/6 body and then still pump it up. You could put counters on itself, right? And to make it into a creature, tap 2 untapped tokens you control, and then it becomes a creature. So you need 2 tokens, either token creatures or food tokens, map tokens, some type of tokens. That's all you need to do is tap them down for 6/6 body for 3 mana. Can you get 2 tokens by turn 4? That's all you need to know. That's all the question is. If you can, you have a 6/6 body attacking and protected from sweepers. Festival of Members, 4 mana, 1 red enchantment. During your turn, you can cast instant sorceries from your graveyard by paying 1 life in addition to other costs. If a card or token we put in the graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. That only affects you. We put into your graveyard. So you're the only one that's exiling stuff. 2 things come to mind. One is, it's kind of like Lear, but it's in red. So you get to cast your spells from the graveyard. You have to pay 1 life, so that's a little bit dangerous. There's no Black March to gain life back anymore. But so you're going to need some type of lifelink probably, or some way to gain life. If you're playing white and you have that adventure card out, that whenever you cast, burn damage has lifelink, that's an option. And you could sacrifice the embers for 2 mana, right? So you can get rid of that effect. Clear out your graveyard, sack it, redo. But just, I think it might be fun to build around. Mockingbird X and 1/1. Enter as a copy of a creature the battlefield, mana less. I just think there's going to be some nice things that we want to copy, and trying to figure out what those are. It's going to be nice to build around. Another card that I was kind of looking at, as I was looking for the top 10, not that these are the top 10, they're not in any order, but Steampath Charger, 1 and 1 red for a 2/1. It has an offspring of 2, so for 4 mana you get 2 of them, and when it dies, it deals 1 damage to target player. And this could really be an Ogier style deck where, when it dies, it deals 4 damage instead of 1. And its Charger deals 1 damage. And then there's some other cards that pump them up, right? There's, that give, so this possibly be 2 or 4 damage. Just be like a really nice build around concept of dealing 1 damage, right? Sure, Obnixilis, the planeswalker, is gone, but Obnixilis, the creature that likes it when you do 1 damage, is still in the game, and it could just be a nice build around. Camellia, the Seed Miser, 1 mana, 1 black, 1 green, 3/3. Other scrolls you control have menace. When you sacrifice 1 or more foods, create a 1/1 squirrel, and you could pay 2 to forage and put a +1/+1 counter on each squirrel you control. So basically you pay 2, you sack a food, you create a 2/2 squirrel, and all your other squirrels get each other squirrel. So this doesn't get pumped, but the other squirrels are going to get pumped. It's an interesting build around, thinking about it. And then the last 2, kind of like 10 and 11, are kind of similar cards, and they're same kind of. We have the Star Charter, 3 mana, 1 white, 3/1. If you, at the beginning of your end step, if you gained or lost life, look at the top 4 cards, reveal a creature card, power 3 or less, put them into your hand, put the rest on the bottom in any order. So it's a way to get a card draw. And then the Whisker Veil Forerunner, 3 mana, 1 white, 3/4. When it becomes the target of spell or ability for the first time each turn, look at the top 5 cards of your library, a creature card with mana value. So that's the difference. Power 3 or less, mana value 3 or less. So maybe these are 2 different decks. I was thinking they would be a similar build around card. Not that they would go in the same deck, you would use one or the other, but they're a little bit different. So this is mana value 3 or less, the Star Charter's power 3 or less, but kind of similar concepts of a deck building idea that I'm thinking about. So you could either put it into the battlefield if it's your turn, put it into battlefield. put it in your hand if it's not. Yeah, so kind of two little build arounds. So yeah, that's all. My little thoughts, just a little talking head video. I don't know how long it is, but yeah, that's been told. Like and subscribe, and be looking for these future coming up. Like and subscribe.